Okay, so in this lesson, we're going to learn how to open an image in Photoshop. There's a couple different ways to do it, so we'll look at a couple different ways you can do it. And then once you have your image in Photoshop, I'm going to show you how to navigate around your image. And I'll show you what I mean by that, because a lot of times we work with images in Photoshop that are really big. For example, my camera shoots something like 4,000 by 6,000 pixel images, and that's not even a high megapixel camera. So let's go ahead and hop into Photoshop here. And let's open a new document or a new image. Now, like I said, there's a couple different ways to do the same thing. In fact, in some cases, there's a million ways to do the same thing in Photoshop. I'm not going to focus on teaching you every single one of them. Personally, I think that'll overwhelm you. What I really want to focus on are the fastest ways and the most effective ways. So what I'd recommend for you is to grab a piece of paper and a pen so you can jot down some key commands. These aren't, paragraphs. These are a couple lines of information that will help you navigate the screen quicker. So let's go ahead and look at the ways we can open a document. First one is to open Photoshop and come to the open button right here. Obviously, this is how most software will open a document, and then you can navigate to wherever you need to be, whether it's your desktop or a hard drive. So that's pretty darn easy right there. Use the open button. Of course, if it's something that I've been working on recently, I can simply click here and it will let me open it right back up. Beyond that, we can also go to File, Open. You'll also see we have Open Recent, and we also have Open as Smart Object, which we'll talk about later when we get a chance to define smart objects. You'll also see there's the option to open in Bridge, or in this case, it says Browse in Bridge. So a little backstory on what Bridge is. Bridge is a software that is developed specifically to allow you to manage large amounts of imagery. Now, if you remember back from the previous video, I talked about Lightroom. Lightroom is also an Adobe project program that allows you to deal with large amounts of images. And you'll see, if you look on my timeline, that I have Lightroom and Bridge. Now, personally, I use Lightroom more often because it offers a little bit more of what I currently need. But when I was a catalog design artist, I used to use Bridge all the time because I would have thousands of images that I had to be responsible for and keep track of. And let's go ahead and open Bridge real quick. Now, just so you know, when you get an Adobe Creative Cloud, when you get the full package, Bridge is a piece of software that you can download for free, comes with the full package. So there's no harm in getting it. So if you're wondering, you're like, what is Bridge? Do I need this? The answer is, do you need it? I would say that depends on the type of work you're doing and the amount of images you're doing. If you're taking one or two images at a time and you don't mind opening those up in Photoshop individually, or using something like Preview, which if you're on a Mac, you can just click on an image and hit the space bar, and that opens it up just for a preview. And that's kind of what Bridge does. It allows you to preview your images. Let's go File, Browse in Bridge. Now, I'm not sure. I think I used Bridge recently, but to be quite honest, it's not a piece of software that I use regularly. And that is because, for me, Lightroom works better. In this case, I had an interesting job. I had about 200 photos, and I needed to basically select certain photos. So I used Bridge because what I like about Bridge is that it does give you a visual, meaning I can click on this image, which is a raw image. If I tried to open that same image using the space bar and preview on just in the Mac, it would be slow. So this gives me a very quick look at these images. Now, these are low res thumbnails, but still I can gather a lot of information from what I'm looking at. And if I want to, I can right click on them and give them a rating or give them a color. And that way, when I have to go upload them and send them to my client, I've got, you know, the green ones that I know are good, the blue ones that I might use. So again, this was a shoot that I shot 250 photos. So it makes sense to use something like Bridge or Lightroom to manage these photos. And the nice thing is it's telling me all my photo information, what f-stop I was using, my ISO, the size of the image, the size of the file. So again, there are lots of benefits. And to be quite honest, I'm sure you could do a heck of a lot more with Bridge. But for me, I don't use it very often. For me, if I need to deal with large amounts of photos, I use Lightroom because Lightroom has additional editing functions, which are just convenient. Moving on. So again, if you're a photographer and you're dealing, you know, doing a wedding or a party or something where you're just rattling off tons of photos, then you're gonna need to look into something like Bridge or Lightroom to help you manage lots of photos. But if you simply want to be doing ad layout, things like that, Photoshop will handle most of the work that you need. So those are all the different ways. And of course, it's also worth mentioning that drag and drop does work. If I already have a document open, I can drag an image into it. In this case, I don't have a document open yet, but if I grab, say, this little image right here on my desktop, and I drag it over and drop it on the Photoshop icon, you will see that it opens it up in a window that is based on the size of the photo. Meaning that sometimes we set custom windows. Maybe if I'm doing video work, I might want it to be 1920 by 1080. And if I dropped this image into that window, it would crop a good amount of the image off because this image is about 4,000 by 6,000 pixels. So with that said, again, you've got open right here. You've got file, open, open recent, open browse in Bridge. You can open images from there. You can come down to your recent images. You can also drag and drop images onto the Photoshop icon. Again, depending on what mood I'm in, I might use any of those. So if we go back to our image that we now have open, hopefully you watched the video discussing basically just the layout of the screen here. And now we'll go into a little more detail about how to kind of navigate your way around the screen. Because when we're working with images, we need to work, sometimes in a way where we can see the entire image, and sometimes we need to be zoomed all the way in, meaning we need to see the pixels. And you'll notice that if I navigate to an area that's not overexposed, you start to see this grid. These are the pixels. Each one of these is an individual pixel. And currently, this image has about 6,000 across the top and 4,000 along the side. And if you multiply those two numbers together, you will have the total number of pixels in this image, something you will likely never need to do. So with that said, let's take a look at the size of this image. As I said, my camera shoots large images, roughly 6,000 by 4,000 pixels. So this screen that we're looking at, this iMac only produces, I believe, 1920 by 1080 images, meaning that if I blew this up to 100%, it would be larger than my screen. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to do that in a lot of cases. So let's just take a look at image size. So how can we find out how big our image is? And the answer is, there's a few different ways. The first and probably easiest is to just look into this lower left-hand corner, right down here. I hope you can see this. In fact, I'll minimize it and pull it into the center of the screen. So right there, see that little guy, 50%. Okay. So we're looking at this image at 50% of its total size right now. And that's fine. That's not necessarily a good or a bad thing. It just means that I'm not zoomed in to the pixel level. You can also see if you look up here, it tells me right there, 50%. So I'm currently zoomed into 50% of the image. Now, I'm going to show you two tools on the toolbar that I recommend that you never, ever use. Now, again, it's up to you, but becoming a fast editor will make you more efficient. It'll make your day of work shorter. It will make your boss more happy that you can get more work done quickly. But more than anything, I find sitting at a computer for long amounts of times to be taxing, both on my eyeballs, on my shoulders, on my wrists. There's nothing fun about sitting at a computer for 8 hours, sort of chained to a mouse. So anything I can do to shorten that amount of time so that you can spend that time with your family or doing the things you want to do is my gift to you. So with that said, we know that right down here, it's going to tell us our level of zoom. We know it tells us right up here too. So right over here, you're going to see a little tool called the zoom tool. And as you can see, if you hover over it, it gives you a little short description of what the tool does. It also tells you what the key command is, so that you don't have to leave where your mouse is. Maybe you're over here. You don't want to have to go all the way over here, click this, drag it up here, drag it around to zoom in, and then go back to where you were on your layers. Instead, there's a hotkey that is Command plus or Command minus. Now, if I hit Command plus, it zooms me in. If I hit it again, it zooms me in again. And in 2 clicks, I am now at 100%. So if you're working on a PC, that's going to be Control plus or minus. Plus zooms you in, minus zooms you out. Also, if I ever say Option, if you're on a PC, just translate that to Alt. Okay, so I want to clarify right now the difference. I'm working on a Mac. And so for that reason, I will most likely be giving you keyboard shortcuts in Mac language. But for those of you on a PC, and of course, Photoshop works just fine on a PC. There's no reason to have to get a Mac. So if I say Command and you're on a PC, just use Control. If I say Option and you're on a PC, just translate that to Alt. Okay, Command equals Control, Option equals Alt. Because I'm going to be giving you a lot of key commands right now, and I want you to be able to use these effectively. So just to show you, if I do click on this tool and I come over here and I click and drag, I can zoom in. I can't zoom out though. Look it, I'm dragging the opposite direction and it's still just zooming in. And quite honestly, now I'm at 820, excuse me, I'm at 8,226%. Okay, seems a bit excessive. Let's go over to this tool right up here. Remember how I said every tool on the toolbar has a certain amount of functionality right here. And you'll see there are a couple cool things. Resize window to fit, zoom all windows. I can choose fit to screen. If I click on that, fits it to the screen. I can choose fill screen, which does just a little bit more. Or I can switch it to the minus and I can click and drag and it shrinks it down. As I said, all of that is a waste of time, in my opinion. And that is because generally the way a good editor works is with their right hand on the mouse and their left hand on the keyboard. And that's not really an optional thing. And I'll show you why in just a second. So for me, the space bar is where I usually keep my thumb. But in this case, I just slide it over to the command button. And then I use my middle finger and my ring finger to either hit plus or minus. And the beauty of this is that let's say I'm using the pen tool. Notice that I don't have to change my tool. I've still got the pen tool. So for me, it makes absolutely no sense. If I'm coming over here and maybe I'm vignetting the corners with a little bit of, darker colors, and I go, you know what, I want to zoom in. To have to come over here, click this button, zoom in, and then go back to my brush tool is a complete waste of time. Now, to quickly undo what I just did right there, I'm going to hit Command Z, because just like every piece of software out there, Command Z is the backspace or undo command. So far we've gotten Command or Control plus and minus, zooms you in, zooms you out. We've also got Command Z, which undoes any silly things you might do by accident. And if I do two things like this and then this, I can hit Command Z once and then hit it again. Okay, we have virtually an unlimited amount of back steps that we can take. There's a couple other things that are worth knowing. So let's say that I hit Command plus, and I'm trying to zoom in here to see which one of these little seeds is in focus. And I can see that, some of these are soft. Now, what you notice is I'm navigating around my screen. Now, there is a tool for this, the hand tool. Where is the hand tool? It is probably right here inside the bottom tool. If I click on this tool, I can then drag around my screen. But again, that is a waste of time. I do not want to be going over here to the hand tool. I don't even want to be hitting the key command to switch between, say, the hand tool or the zoom tool. It's faster, but it's not fast enough. The best way to navigate around your screen, and the fastest way, is to simply press the space bar. See how I hit the space bar and it turns my icon into a hand. All right, and once I hit that and click, I can drag. And again, let's say I'm using the brush tool. Shrink it down a little bit here. Let's say I'm using the brush tool, but I want to get something over here. Space bar, click, drag, and notice I'm right back to the brush tool. So while you have the hand tool and the zoom tool, I strongly, borderline emphatically recommend that you never use them. There are much faster ways to zoom in and navigate around your screen. And again, those ways are Command plus or minus. Now, it's also worth mentioning that if I hit Command 0, that's going to fill my screen. It's going to basically fill the screen or fit the screen to the image. Excuse me, fit the image to the screen. If I hit Command 1, it will fill the screen. So those are essentially these options: fit to screen and fill screen. Those are nice things to be able to do with one click, but again, I don't recommend using the zoom tool because it means you have to switch the tool that you're using. And that's something that's going to waste time and cause you to use extra brain power that could be put into your creative endeavors. So Command plus, Command minus. And the beautiful thing about that is almost a universal key command in Adobe software. So if you're in Premiere or After Effects and you want to zoom in, it's Command plus, Command minus. If you're in Illustrator, Command plus, Command minus. One of the coolest things about Adobe software is the carryover from one application to another. Okay, with that said, notice I have two images open here. As you see here, we can have multiple documents open at the same time, and I can come up here and click between them. But I can also use Command Tab. Oops, let's see, make sure we're in Photoshop. Command Tab. Oh, pardon me. Let's see, it's not working. I'm sorry, Control Tab. That's one situation where Control Tab is going to be the tool that allows you to switch between images. And I'll tell you, when I'm doing real estate stuff where I've got multiple images all shot at different exposures, being able to quickly scrub through them is helpful. All right, so we'll go down our list here. We've got spacebar. And quite honestly, I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover. What else? There are a few other ways that you can zoom in and zoom out. There's view, zoom in, zoom out, which again would take way too long to come up here. But the nice thing about this is if you ever forget what the key commands are, there they are right there. Command plus, command minus, or command 0, or command 1. So again, if you need to use the tools at first, that's fine, but I guarantee you will realize very quickly that this is a much faster way to do it. Not having to leave your current tool to zoom in or to move across your screen is huge. So I think that is it. I will stop talking.